Greetings from the Northwoods of Michigan's Upper Peninsula. I'm Natasha, your plant-centered lifestyle guide, and you are tuned in to my weekly video where I provide tips and inspiration for those on their plant-centered journey. And if you're joining for the first time today, welcome. I'm glad you're here. And today's topic is lectins. So immediately some of you went, oh, yeah, I've heard of those. Those aren't good for you, right? And then others of you are saying, a lectin? What's a lectin? Is that something else that I need to be concerned or worried about? Well, the whole point is, I did a video a while back about reductionism and the fact that in the United States, reductionism has become the norm when it comes to talking about nutrition. We have gone so far down the rabbit hole of identifying specific proteins and certain carbohydrates. Then what we do is we attach them to diets. And we say that you have to avoid this or you need to get more of that. And we have made it very confusing to the general public as far as what to eat and what not to eat. And why have we done this? We've done this because we are so desperate as a society to explain the obesity and other diseases that we are suffering from. And so what we want to do is grasp onto straws and say, oh, it's got to be those lectins. That's the latest, that if we just avoid lectins, that we are going to be healthier. And that is simply not the case. So lectins are proteins that bind to carbohydrates. You don't really need to know all about that. The lectins, they're found in peppers and tomatoes and nuts and in dried beans. Those are all very healthful foods, and they are a big part of a plant-centered way of eating. And it is okay to eat those foods. They are healthy, and you don't need to be worried about those lectins, those proteins that bind to carbohydrates. Well, then why is anybody making a fuss about it? Well, there was a book that was written by Dr. Gundry, and it brought up all sorts of things that made lectins look like they were the culprit. They were the cause of all sorts of ailments, or at least supportive of many of the ailments that people suffer from. When in fact there are thousands of research studies out there that show that lectins have many more health benefits than any potential risks. Now you might be saying, okay, so, all right, well now you've got my interest piqued. Lectins, like those found in dried beans, they are completely removed, or almost completely removed, by cooking those dried beans. So if you soak those dried beans and then cook those dried beans, then you are going to cook the lectins out of the dried beans, and then they will be fine to consume. So now you're saying, well, yeah, but I don't always cook tomatoes and I don't always cook nuts. Well, here's the thing. There are lectins in those foods, but they are not in a form that is going to harm us or in significant amounts that are going to harm us. And so the benefits of eating nuts and tomatoes and peppers far outweigh any of the potential risks that lectin might pose to us as human beings. So it's a minuscule amount of risk, and the health promoting benefits of those foods are immense. Now, there's also research studies out there that show that lectins actually might be beneficial. And in my mind, I would much rather think about lectins being beneficial. You have an incredibly healthful food, and why are we just going to assume that the parts that make up that whole food are somehow bad? Now again, going back to reductionism, if we remove the lectin out of the whole food and we study it at that level, then in fact, it may have negative benefits. So I encourage you, as always, if you can, to look at things from a more holistic perspective, and also to get all of the facts, and not to be alarmed when you hear the latest, which might be low carb or high protein or no lectins or get more fiber or whatever it might be. All of these things are out there and being thrown at us because the diet industry is huge and it's preying upon our fears. I'm going to reiterate that lectins are not something that we humans need to be worried about unless for some reason you plan on taking dried beans and grinding them up and sprinkling them on your food, which I don't think many of us would do. Again, the way that we eat those foods allows us to, in fact, ingest those lectins, and they have many more benefits to us than anything detrimental. So thank you for listening. Have a great week, and I will talk to you soon.